Hey, welcome. On today's show, what does it take to future-proof your career in the age of AI? Do you have the hottest AI skills that are going to be necessary for 2025? That's what we're going to be talking about today. It's the essential competencies that we believe that you're going to need in order to find success not only in 2025 this year, but in the next few years to come. So this is the Daily AI Show. Today is January 27, 2025, and I am joined by Beth, Jyunmi, Andy, Karl, and I am Brian. We have almost a full boat today. Welcome back, Jyunmi. Welcome. I know Karl was back on Friday, but good to see you as well. So we have all the major players here, minus Aaron. So it should be a really good conversation for today. So like I said, today is all about not one particular skill. Yeah, I don't think you're going to hear any of us today say, this is absolutely the thing you need to do and it'll fix all going forward. It's more about, I heard a good term today, and I wonder if you guys agree, like being a conductor, the idea of being an AI conductor. And what does that mean? You know, in the era of agents that we can see, an operator just coming out and what Claude and Anthropic put out before that, and even going back a year or two, looking at what we were seeing with baby AGI and things like that, where there was control of your computer. And we know agents are definitely going to be the big, new AI thing this year in 2025. This idea and role of being a conductor is really, really interesting. But what does that mean? What skills would you even have to have if somebody labeled you as an AI conductor for your particular role and your particular job at your industry and your niche? What does that even mean? So I think we're going to dive into a lot of that today. So like I said, we have almost a full boat. So happy to jump in here. And I don't know, where do we want to start off? Jyunmi, do you feel like you have something you want to jump in? You've been out for a bit, so would love to hear your thoughts to kind of get this going.
Yeah, I think in that framework as the conductor, that kind of gives us a good track to go down. And in that, I'd say really being process oriented, right? Everyone needs to understand that when it comes to AI, it's about how it applies to their position or their job or their work and things like that. I mean, unless you're getting into the development and research specifically of AI, it's more about how AI is applied or how you apply AI to your process. So understanding what you're doing and understanding what your day-to-day is, I think that's the number one, because that allows you to really find the spots where AI is going to enhance whatever that process is, whether it's save time, increase output, apply a different framework, those kinds of things. And the other side of that coin is to use AI to fill any gaps that you can't do yourself, right? So we've talked about having AI as part of your C-suite, or having AI as part of a department that you don't normally cover, right? If you're in the creative, but you need someone in operations, then you can use AI to help you fill in those gaps for operations and vice versa and things like that. So I think those are the two on the top of my head, is being able to apply AI to your process and your work. I think that's probably the most applied skill that you could enhance or upskill.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is what I would consider sort of be that like AI literacy side of things, right?
Yeah.
Which is, understanding some basics, like what is AI and what it isn't, like being able to distinguish between hype and reality. What are the capabilities and what are the limitations? Like you got to know where AI realistically can do things, such as what we'll talk about, automatic tasks or analyzing data or things that have to do with personal experiences. To your point, Jimmy, you have to really know how AI impacts your specific role. You're the one with the industry expertise, so knowing where it applies or can be impacting on your role is important. And then just, I think on top of that, like some basic AI terminology. You don't have to be an expert. Nobody's saying or suggest, or I'm not. I will say me. I don't talk for everybody. I'm not suggesting anybody. My opinion is that you do not need to be an AI expert. You need to continue, oddly, what seems counterintuitive is you need to continue to be an expert in your field. That is what I actually see is like when you talk about like an AI hottest trend, it's not that AI is going to replace you. What we see is it's the AI plus human, right? And so it's going to require, there's all sorts of nooks and crannies where AI is just going to fall down for the foreseeable future. And so it's really going to rely on the true expertise, and kind of going back to the idea of the conductor as we talk about agents, I'm sure today. That's really where I see it, because it's going to be the people with the expertise who can be the true AI agents, even if that means that you're essentially being a conductor and handling 20 agents doing other things. There's still going to need to be the human knowledge to connect, look for biases, and all the other things we could talk about, the ethical side of things, and on and on. So anyway, I just agree with everything you're saying there, but like I sort of wrap that around, like, yeah, it's kind of like AI literacy, which I know, Beth, you talked about that as well.
So the thing that got me thinking about the topic for this show was an X post that Logan Kilpatrick. I can never get the name right. Logan Kilpatrick, who is currently the product lead for AI Studio at Google, but was at OpenAI for a while, and he wrote, "The line between researchers and developers has never been more blurry than in the age of AI. If you're a researcher, it's time to build. If you're a developer, it's start experiments," right? Those sorts of things. And that seemed to me to be a really interesting side of the conversation, because it's less like, what if you're not either one of those, but like, what are the pieces that you want to add? And for me, I think also, what are the pieces that you want to add to be able to talk about and get good at talking about, right? Because AI is still one of those things that you are going to have to explain why you're an expert and why you should be the person that people rely on for that, because they don't have enough of an understanding of it, and it keeps shifting,
Mm-hmm.
right? What it can do.
And everybody in your organization is not going to, if you should go on and learn, I'm sure people in our audience are interested in this, wanting to be that sort of person who's up on what's going on with AI and constantly looking for continuous improvement, classes, understanding what's coming out, what does it impact me, how does it impact me. But the reality is, a lot of people won't be that person in your company. And so it's what you're saying, Beth, and I agree, which is it's that storytelling aspect. Can you even take getting fast answers is no longer the issue. I can put something into DeepSeek, I can put something into O1 and O3 Mini coming up, and Google's amazing Gemini Flash thinking experimental model. And I can get answers even on the thinking side, the critical side, in 10 seconds. Far, far beyond anything we were able to do in the past. Great. What are you going to do with it? And we do that every day with the show, right? We look at our notes, we do our research for the show, but then it's how do we communicate that to everybody? How do we say, this is like this is the metaphors, these are the stories, this is how I connect it. This is Andy's expertise and what he used to do with FitAid and LifeAid, and his brain's going to look at it from this angle. So I think that's really important for everybody to have that sort of storytelling hat to put on that says, sure, AI can create these amazing things. Maybe in the near future, you'll have agents doing amazing things, multiplying, as Karl has demonstrated with Operator. But you still have to be able to transition that and translate it to the general populace,
Right. And the irony in that is that AI can write you an amazing story, right? Evocative, provocative, all the things, but you still need to be a storyteller to share it, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of it, we need to convey our humanity and expertise to the human on the other side to make the decision. And yes,
really quick,
sometimes the human on the other side is an agent first and then becomes a human, but you still need to treat it like a human, I think.
And that's what I was just about to say, Betsy, before we get to Andy and Karl and stuff, is I want to call it what Greg said. Greg said in our comments, agents will handle agents. I'd push back on that a little bit, Karl. I agree with you, but I think there's a gap there between, we're going to see, before we just automatically see agents handling agents. I agree with you. I think in some future state, that's true. But I still say today, there's so many nuances that AI actually isn't really great in. When you get into the true human instincts and aspects and things like that, it's gonna generally look at it. It's still gonna really need human expertise to help shape and move those AI agents. And yes, in the future, your role at your job might be to make sure the AI agents never stop working. I mean, truthfully, right? That's the conductor. Like, or think of it better than maybe a conductor isn't a better thing, but telephone operator putting in a lines, the switchboard operators, right? From the back of the day. The whole job was to connect all day long. Pull it out of here, put it in here. If you ever watched The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, there's a great scene from that show back in the day where Maisel is doing that and she's rolling back and forth. It's a fantastic, well shot scene. But anyway, that's what I think of in my head is your role may be to put your expertise at place and ensure that the AI agents don't go down, that they continue to operate. And as we saw Karl's show on Friday, but also Karl, you had a great video that you put out on TikTok showing how you were running multiple operators and how you had it going in and using Microsoft Copilot, which you can talk to a little bit if you like. But what I saw in that was, okay, Karl is the operator, Karl is the conductor, or not the operator, the conductor, and you were having to go, Karl, back and forth through it and say, yes, continue here, or oh, you're close, but let me take control really quick and go back. So I could really imagine what I saw you doing in that TikTok video being somebody's 100% job, but it's going to rely on their expertise to do it.
So first of all, if you wanna see that demo, I posted it on LinkedIn too. So if you want to go there, that's a promo. So the demo that we're talking about is I think it's funny because always the example, and even my business partner goes into this. It's like, oh, imagine if an AI agent can book my travel. It's like, yeah, but I kind of don't want it to book my travel because I needed to be very specific on what I wanted to do. Okay, but regardless of that, I think that the thinking is we're still thinking about, like, oh, this agent can do this particular task. I'm like, that's cool. But how about you do multiple agents all at the same time? So what I did is I actually did 8 different operators trying to do 8 different things. I actually ran into a limit. There is a limit on the number of active operators that you can have all at the same time. I think that was 9 or 10. I can't remember.
Wow.
But so the task was I had 4 different operators to do 4 different tasks, kind of related. So log into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and do these tasks and do it all at once. So execute, 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 execute. And honestly, I didn't need to take over anything. I just needed to confirm a bunch of things, and it did it quite well. And you can layer on tasks on top of it. Going back to the skill set, I really believe that the skill set that needs to merge is not just, so here's an example. Let's say go to market, right? The go to market function, there's a lot of different things that are happening in go to market. Organic, paid, customer, CX, product, they're all involved in some form or fashion. Imagine each group or each area deploying multiple operators to do whatever it is, accessing Salesforce, accessing HubSpot, accessing Google Ads, accessing Dropbox, whatever it is to ask. This morning, I asked it to access Dropbox, create a shareable link, log into my Outlook, send link to this person. Did it. No problems. And the logins, I've already done the logins. So it just, because it's browser based, it just remembered the logins and it sent. The only thing that it can't do though is access Slack. It is blocked from Slack in some weird fashion, but it doesn't matter. I tried to do it in Asana, tried to do it in Trello, can. So this is the shift in thinking is like, hey, you now have multiple operators you conduct and do access all these different systems that we have and execute. The cool thing is I also asked it to, hey, I want you to use Microsoft Copilot to do this. So it's an agent controlling Microsoft Copilot.
I thought that was really novel when I saw that, by the way, Karl. I got to give you props. I was like, that's pretty cool. I wouldn't have thought to do that right away, but that was like next level stuff. So anyway.
Remember, I tried to break this thing. The first thing I tried to do is like access operator, access operator, access operator, inceptionize yourself to keep accessing it. But yeah, the next thing I'm going to do is, hey, go into, I went into agent.ai. So that's HubSpot's deal, or Dharmesh's, and I'm like, hey, access this agent to do this. Now copy everything there, put it into a Word doc. Cool. Now send me an email. Complete. So I think you just have to start going beyond the book me a travel, book me a restaurant. I'm like, don't think of that. Think about everything you do and have an operator do it. and we all know it's going to get better. So I can't do all these tasks as fast as operator can. I can do one task much faster, but can I do 6, 7 of them all at once at that time? No. And if all I have to do is confirm it, this is amazing. And if I really need to, I can take control. So that, going back to the skill set, that is the new skill set people will have to have, is the ability to create, manage, operate AI agents, essentially.
Or at the very least be able to work side by side,
Yes.
for lack of a better term, with AI agents. It's really a thinking of, how are you going to get better at your communication, your emotional intelligence, your EQ, right? How are you going to get better at things like empathy? How are you going to get better at communication as a whole, in order to both communicate what you're getting out of AI with other humans? Also, you need to be able to communicate efficiently and effectively with AI agents as if they were your coworkers. And oftentimes, at least right now, and they will get much smarter. But again, that's like having a intelligent, maybe somebody right out of college, intern who just pops in your door, pops in my office right here, and says, "I'm here to help. I'm intelligent. I'm out of college. I've put my hours in, and I can do a lot of things pretty okay. I don't know your specific job." They wouldn't be able to be like, "I can't run the daily AI show right this second. But if you explain to me step by step what I'm supposed to be doing, and I generally understand what the outcome, what great looks like at the other end, I bet you I'm going to be able to go off and do this on your behalf." And then we talk about human in the loop. Would I do that and let somebody go all the way till 5 p.m. today and then check in with them? I could, but I'm going to run the risk of them diverging at some point during the day and not really keeping on task with what I wanted to, as opposed to human in the loop. Maybe every 30 minutes to an hour, if they're a brand new intern, I might talk to them several times during the day. But to your point, Karl, just briefly, "Hey, that looks great. Keep going where you're going." Or, "No, you need to go this way." I see that no differently than how people will have to interact day to day with AI agents. You're going to be able to have to communicate. You're going to have to be able to get it back on track. You're going to have to be able to fill in where the AI is not great at human things and connect the dots for the AI. Yeah. And then you're going to have to be able to do the same thing for humans.
Yeah.
It's about
and
communication.
And this isn't everything, right? Like, you can't do everything that you do, but it can do a lot of stuff now if you think about it, deploying in multiple ways and giving it clear instructions. Like, I just do this step 1, step 2, step 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I did notice there are some times. So I said, log into Excel. It went into Excel. What happened?
I don't know, but you're back.
Okay, we're still back.
Somebody hacked our system.
Sorry, that was another operator that I logged. No, it would do these weird things. They're like, log into excel.com. I was like, what's excel.com? And but the funny thing is, it would realize its mistake and then go back and then do the right thing. So obviously it's still.
Hold 1 second. Somebody's typing is super loud.
Sorry. That's me. Sorry.
Somebody can mute. Yeah, sorry. It just got super loud. I couldn't even hear Karl. Go ahead. Go ahead, Karl.
No, so that was it. That was it's just interesting, like, because it's in I guess in research beta right now. They're still trying to find out what it does, but I think, like, from a skill set perspective, you kind of need to know. And going back to your point, Brian, about that intern, yeah, that's a really easy way for somebody to kind of learn the business. Just another way. It's like, hey, I need you to give you these instructions and go execute it with the agent, and then watch the agent, how it does it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of, you can kind of get started. But I was thinking about it. It's really funny to be able to access other agents. I was like, Mark Benioff, did you realize that, like, Agent Force? I'm like, I can just use operator to run Agent Force. What does that mean? And how will you make it easier for agents to access your systems?
Yeah. I want to I wanted to
The
call
br-
out really quick that what you said, Karl, but I wanted to call Garrett's post because he's kidding, obviously, but he's like typing with 10-pound weights. LL, just kidding, Beth. So I'm sorry. I like that people can like joke. I love that y'all are in the comments. Anyway, I just wanted to call that really quick. That made me laugh. Go ahead, Andy. Sorry.
So the breakthrough that operator represents is not fully the end game vision of what agents will be able to do, because
Mhm.
it operates with you on your desktop basically, and its trick is that it looks at what the screen is that you have open on your desktop, right? So it can open tabs and it can do those things, but it's basically looking over your shoulder and exploiting your logins and at your access to tools. So if you're going to have your operator go out and work with Agentforce, well, you better have a Salesforce account and you better have access to Agentforce.
Mhm.
So it can do things while you're doing other things that you could normally do. Now, if an eventual agent is going to be able to do way beyond that, right? You're going to empower it with credentials and access, and the external systems out there will actually create a marketplace in which agents, given a general task, can go out and engage with something that you don't already have access to, but your agent has authorization to pay for access to that
Mhm.
thing that it needs to do. And it'll probably stop and say, hey, I'm going to spend some money here on this. And they're acting like an independent human would be. Whereas I just want to point out that operator, as cool a progression as it is, it's basically, it's an instrument that's working in your environment and
Mhm.
doing only the things that you could otherwise do. And the advantage is that it can do those things while you're doing them. Now, I want to just quickly, because I have the floor here, I want to say what I think the general skills are that you need, and I'll give you a context for that. In software development, there are engineers who are the builders, right? But they have to have specific instructions about what they are to build. And the analogy here might be a general contractor, needs to have an architect to tell the tradespeople who are going to build the house what they're building. And so there is, in the world of software development, there is a gradation of engineering talent. There are junior engineers, there are senior software engineers, and then there are architects. If you're a software architect in a company, that means that you've been assigned the role of deciding how the solution is going to be formed, what platforms are going to be used, what systems are going to be integrated with which systems. And I think this is perfectly analogous to what one of the central skills has to be for you in the world of designing what a solution might be that's going to make AI assist your function in your department or use you personally. You have to be able to decide which tools can be applied. And that's a tough thing to do when the tools are evolving so quickly. And there are thousands and thousands of very narrowly designed tools that probably do things much better than your operator agent could do them,
Mhm.
constrained to just the things that you already have access to. So knowing as an AI advocate within your company, what's available out there that's already been built by some team with a startup or one of the major companies to solve something within your own space, that's probably the fastest and best way to get to the productivity gains and or the enhanced solutions that you want. But keeping abreast of all the things that are available out there, and that's one step, just
Mhm.
knowing that they exist. The next one is being facile enough with them, having at least dabbled with them or practiced with them to know whether or not they actually constitute a solid solution to the thing. And that's what an architect's job is. An architect has to know that I'm speccing this and that's going to work.
Right. And this is one of the things, like to your point, and one of the things that you've heard me rail on the show about is please just search and replace. right? It's such easy code. Like when you have something like a canvas, just give me search and replace. I don't want the AI to understand what search and replace is. I don't want the AI to whip up code in the moment for search and replace. It's a thing. Just grab the code from somewhere and like let the AI understand when to run that. And that I think is one of the pieces that is going to be more important as we move forward, because the way that we're communicating with these large language models is through language. But language is also, like, code is also a language. And so there are times where it's more helpful to describe something as code or pseudocode, right? Like it can understand you even if you don't really know how to, like, you got the syntax wrong. It still understands what you're asking it for. In It's like missing the proper tense in speaking English when you're speaking with someone who doesn't understand, who's like new to English. You can still do that. We don't know, because the graphs, the model that it creates, its own like what's close to what word, we don't know those. Rob Lennon calls them high gravity words. So like if you're asking for a story, you've killed anything. It doesn't hear anything else that you've said. It's like once upon a time, we have these amazing story elements coming in, even though what you're asking for is the customer story, right?
Mm.
Like, give me the customer journey, give me the customer story, and those kinds of things. Brian, when you were talking about your intern can say, "Oh, I thought like story with a capital S and
Yeah.
all of this." Your AI is like, sure, boss. I'll do it differently this time. Story is still in its history and it's still going to give you a story.
I don't know. I can't really push back on that. I would say, I think, because what we wouldn't get with an intern is, unless you verbatim said, okay, I just told you everything I need you to do, but for clarity, repeat back what you think you heard. I could say that to an intern. Actually, it's a great way to do that. I do that with my 14-year-old sometimes. Tell me what you think I just said. Because I don't think we're on the same page, so tell me what, and oftentimes she'll say, yeah, you said this, this, and this. And I'd say, okay, that's on me. My communication is bad because that's not what I meant. You heard my words, but you interpreted them differently. The difference, obviously, with these thinking models, whether it's the Gemini or O1 or DeepSeek, is I can actually look and see. Operator, we can actually look and see what happened. And you're right, Beth, it may still go down the wrong path of story. It may yab me to death and tell me it's going to do it the right way and not. But at least I can probably see its thinking process through the way. And being the human in the loop, being the expert, now I have an opportunity to mold or push it in one direction or another. But, when we think about, at least this is my opinion, when you think about the new prompt engineering, if you were going to say, what's the new prompt engineering? I would say it's agent orchestration and supervision. Like, that's the new prompt engineering. And that's not to say that prompt engineering disappears, because you need, as we know, you need the prompt engineering, you need the basics in order to build to the bigger things. You need to be able to do one AI or one AI task in order to build a workflow. I can go into Make and I can say, start here and go there. These are simple automations. And I can, at will, decide to put AI into different parts and pieces of that. If after we create something in this Make automation or Zapier or whatever, and I want to take that and then run it through some sort of AI model, I can certainly do that. And then take the output of that and go somewhere else with it. And we can have this all nice long workflow. That's what they're great for. To me, though, when you really think about the new prompt engineering, and maybe this is a whole show in itself, is the new prompt engineering. It's AI orchestration and supervision, or agent, orchestration and supervision. And that's not to take away from anything people are doing today. But when I listen to you guys, I feel like you're sort of saying these are still the basic skill sets that people should be focusing on in order to be ready for agentic future, whatever that may be. And Andy, you have a great point about, like, right now, operator, it's impressive because it knows where to click and we can go, ooh, but how far away are we? And I think Gareth or somebody else was saying it in the notes about, like, oh, you're out for a walk. And while you're out on the walk, your phone's sending you notifications or your watch is sending you notifications and you're just approving things. Yep. You're at that spot. Go ahead and do it. Yep, you're at that spot. I'm watching my kid's baseball game. Oh, you're at that spot. Go ahead and approve that. And there's like literally this agent working, this operator working on my behalf while I'm at a baseball game or whatever. And I'm just able to keep it moving with just simple interjections or quick corrections along the way to make sure it still goes in the same place. And then what's to say that we're not, about 300 yards directly in front of me, if I point that way, is a UPS store. And so that's a great thing for me because that you can bring Amazon returns there. And the reason I bring it up is because, Andy, to your point, right now we're just talking about things that humans can already do, but to Karl's point, but I can do 6 at a time. And there might be value to that, right? Oh, I can't be on 6 different browsers doing 6 different things concurrently. There's limits to my ability, but they are still things they can do. In the future, it's going to be agents and it's going to be DoorDash and it's going to be the robot spins up to my door and it says, hey, I'm ready to pick up your Amazon return, and I'll take it to 300 yards across the way. It's going to, my point is, it's going to leave our computer. It's going to leave the browser and it's going to start interacting very soon in our real world. I don't think that means I have Rosie the robot next to me in the next 6 months or anything, but I think that's all going to be part of it. We've all seen the little robots and the little things in cities, like, delivering the Chick-fil-A, and it's going down the sidewalk and then it gets stuck and whatever, but that's the idea of it, is that there's these robots roaming around doing that. Right now it's on the browser. Later it's going to be in the real world.
Okay. I get you. And Karl, we have we talked about recycling robots when you weren't even here. But I want to point out the hard piece of understanding what AI is. How many times folks who've been watching the show for a really long time how many times have you heard someone on this panel say, but I asked the AI how it wanted it, whatever. I asked the AI and it told me something about that sounded like it's self-awareness. This is why I did this. This is the format that I want to receive something. We are AI experts that talk about this every day. And still we can get into that. Like, why did you do this? And then it gives you an answer. And it doesn't occur to you that answer was not why it did it. It was the most probable answer to the question, why did you do it? And I feel like that is going to be one of these sticking points now that it's able to take more action on its own. People are going to say, why did you do that? And that is not I don't know that it's going to be able to give you self-awareness. I reason this, look at my reasoning process. You can do that on your own, right? Like you can click the down arrow and see the things that it thought on its way if the process gives you access to that. But this, I think, is a key piece because AI sounds super confident, like you're very helpful, like self-aware. I can tell you everything about why and how and all those things, but it's not the answer from self-awareness. It's the answer from probability prediction.
Yeah, I'd like to follow that point by saying the problem with next most probable step or next most probable answer is that that doesn't necessarily maintain full context and understanding or memory of what was done before. And when last week we did the show and Karl did the demonstration of operator, we saw the operator get into a loop where it was doing the same thing kind of over and over. It had tried something which didn't lead to the right solution. And then it ended up trying that again. Why? Because the operator doesn't have a clear, like, I'm going to keep a list here. And when I try something, if it didn't work, I'm going to check it off and avoid that one the next time. I have personal experience with this working with the Replit agent, that it can say, here, I'm going to do this. And it tries that doesn't work. I tell it why it doesn't work and so on. And then you say, okay, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to go down this path. Well, that didn't work. And then it comes back and says, well, I'm going to try this. Exactly the same wording, what it said, the penultimate step before the last failure. And why? Because it doesn't have a clear memory like a human would. And you can't go to the AI and say, look, I told you that already. Mm-hmm. That doesn't work in AI. And so that puts a huge burden on the orchestrator of the steps that have to be done, because you've got to be incredibly patient and realize that the AI is going to do some things repetitively and stupidly that are things that a human wouldn't do, because they have a better control using memory, a short-term memory, by the way, not something they remember for a long time, but just short-term memory. And of course, this will get better over time, but right now that's a serious limitation of agents.
Well, you know what I did? So, Andy, I said when it did something, I can't remember what it did. I said, hey, stop doing that. You cannot stop doing that. And it actually stopped doing it. It's like, don't do that.
Yeah.
It did. You're right though, because even trying to log into it, when I can connect what Brian said to what you said, it's like when you talk about prompting, you have to be very specific about this, right? So if I say, hey, log into Outlook, it will go to outlook.com and try to log in. A probably easier way is go into Office 365, then go to Outlook. Because then it's like it, for some odd reason, it's a faster route that way than trying to do something else. But that's an example of the skill of an operator to be like, hey, understand what path the AI agent is taking and what's an easier path for it versus just writing a vague description. It's not going to do it as well. The more specific you get, the better it is, especially when I noticed when I said, hey, Copilot, when I first said, hey, just use Copilot to do this, it was using the icon Copilot right beside the Word doc. But if I said, hey, use the Copilot icon in the menu, it did it much more straightforward, and then it can access Copilot easier and then run the thing a little bit faster. So that's an example of, hey, you still have to have the expertise and knowledge of the system itself, because when it eventually runs into some issue, you know what it is. You
Yeah.
can't just have random interns be like, hey, I need you to go to Salesforce, run multiple pipeline analysis and do this. And the person just turns right around, goes into operator, does it. And it's like, you're confused. It's confused. And then now you have to go back and be like, hey, I'm not sure how to do this. And you have to do more work, right? So
I think you've made a great point for why expertise will continue to be so valuable, important. And what I was thinking when you said that, Karl, was when I had the CrossFit gym, I taught the vast majority of the classes, hundreds and hundreds of classes, starting at, I was just thinking about that this morning. I used to get up at 4:50 a.m. so I could teach my first class at 5:10 a.m. The gym was right down the street from my house. And then I would teach 2 back-to-back classes to teach. And I would often not get done. I didn't work the entire day, but I wouldn't get done until 9 o'clock at night. Well, as you can imagine, even for me, the 8 p.m. class, assuming it was the same CrossFit workout, ran much more smoothly than the 5:10 class. And that was because I was able to iterate and work through some problems. But even I had instructors who worked for me. And this lady, Debbie, one time said, she goes, it's unfair. It's unfair to watch you teach a class. And I said, why is that? She was joking with me. And she said, because you get in front of the class, you seemingly immediately know how many people, where all the bottlenecks are going to be, how you're going to manage only having 4 rowers. These are our big problems of the day. We'd have 4 C2 rowers because they were expensive. But you had 15 or 16 people. And how are you going to move them through the process so that everybody got a fair workout and got out of there in an hour and all the things that go along with it? And I said, well, Debbie, it's just repetition. It's just experience in doing this. You'll be there someday too. It just takes time, right? Now, look at Patrick Mahomes last night. I was rooting for the Bills, but Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are now going to be back in the Super Bowl for a potential three-peat, which has never happened before. I was just saying this to my CEO, Jake, who's a massive lifelong KC fan, not like bandwagon, but actual KC fan. And I said, it's interesting. You watch Patrick Mahomes and you can tell he just sees the field differently. He sees the field differently. If you were to stop and ask him and say, well, how did you know to do that on that play? How did you know to roll right immediately when the ball was snapped, even though that wasn't the play? And you took it upon yourself. And he would say, well, that's because the defenders were doing this, that. And my point to all saying both of those stories is that's exactly what's going to be needed for AI. And I think you said that really well, Karl, is that you're still going to have to be the human. You're still going to have to be the expert that is able to look at what happened and get it out of those those death spirals of an AI just trying to do the same thing. It did make me wonder though, Karl, could you just tell the operator to, as one part of the process, after everything it tries successfully to a point, to write that in a Google Doc, then to review the Google Doc to get around what Andy was saying about memory? Could you basically have it write its own memory and review its memory so that it never makes the same mistake twice?
I haven't tried that. That would be an interesting thing. You know, you could
create your own memory.
So the task I gave it was review this article. It was the ESPN article on Dan Snyder. It was a pretty long article on, like, you know, he's pissed about the Commanders doing so well after he didn't really want to sell the team. Whatever. It's a really long article.
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked it to one operator to write a summary article about it, and then another operator to create a PowerPoint presentation on it. So it did it. So to me, it has some sort of memory built in there. So, and while we were talking here, I just tried it because you can attach PDFs to it. So what I did is I had it take the attached PDF and send an email to myself, and it did. So it can do that. But yeah, I'm curious to know if I had it read a Google Doc with a pretty comprehensive set of instructions, will it remember it? But we do have to remember that this, I'm going off what they said, is that this is a new model or something like that, that it's based on GPT-4o. So I can only imagine what happens when they put O1 into it, or O3, or whatever they put into it, to make it even more, like, to reason better, understand it better, and not to mention all the data that they're collecting right now of every single person that's using or creating.
Yeah.
It's a research beta, so they're collecting all the data and then fine-tuning it and improving it. So I can only imagine it will get better and reason better and smarter and faster.
I mean, the vision model too, right? You know, and eventually that will probably include sound. You know, you can imagine right now it can just look at what's on your page, and it can make an educated guess, if you will, about what to Beth's point, the next best thing it should do on that page in order to accomplish the goal. But how long before it has sound? How long before it can just watch and listen to a YouTube video and then take actions on that entire, not just the transcript, but actually emotion, the way we say things? Like, it could literally look at this show and say, well, I can break down what Karl said and compare and contrast us against what Beth said, because I know the difference between Karl and Beth. It's two totally different voices. Like, that's where I see it going. I know we don't have that today, but don't we always start with text, then move to vision, then move to full multimodal? So, like, total HD video. So isn't that where operator is going?
Yes. And be able to distinguish that when I talk over Brian, humans can understand. Both Brian and I are talking. The audio is there. Just go ahead and pull them apart and put them in the transcript. It's like, yes, that would be delightful.
To our audience, that is a current pain point that Beth is working through. And so I just wanted everybody to know that as we work through and we edit and do shows and stuff like that, we definitely have some sticking points where AI isn't quite where we need it to be.
It takes 3 minutes to do the majority of the transcript. It takes 20 minutes to finalize those tiny pieces.
Okay, I just have to, I'm looking at the chat here. Gareth, yes, as a Niner fan, yes. One, you know, and I know when I say that was holding on Bosa, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That is, you know exactly what I'm talking. I'm still smarting about that. That was definitely a holding. And Jawan Taylor, that dude is like always false start. Nearly every single play, that guy is a false start. And that was an interception yesterday. That was not a catch. This is total bogus.
This is why I should never mention football on this show, because I immediately saw the chat light up with people talking about Mahomes and stuff like that. I'm rooting for the Eagles. I mean, here's where we're at. It's Chiefs and Eagles. I'm rooting for the Eagles. So anyway, get back on top here. Let's kind of wrap things up. I mean, obviously we talked a lot about agents. We talked a lot about that. You know, what are some of these skills? What are the hottest skills you have? Well, I think we've mentioned a lot of those. You guys throw in what you want. Obviously, I've talked about from the agent side. I definitely think understanding workflow design, human agent collaboration, but also right now that maybe you're not doing stuff with agents, but you will be. So, you know, maybe that means just getting better at your prompting and your communication. I think making sure that you understand how to read and critically evaluate what's coming from AI is going to be really important. We know that it gets things wrong. Beth has talked about how it's giving you the most probable answers. That doesn't mean that's the answers that it should be giving you. And you have to dig, you have to look at citations, and then you have to really like sort of back those up. I think obviously you're going to need to get better at, looking at trust and responsibility. Like, so from the governance and the ethical side of AI, I think getting good at understanding transparency and explainability and these kind of things. And then it just, on top of that, the last thing I'll add, and then you guys go, is just having a open mind towards continuous learning. This show could be part of that journey for you. It is for me. I mean, the show does that every day for me. It's my continuous learning because I'm always learning something from our crew. But also, we all have to go out and, find other ways. Or Andy, to your point about knowing which tools can do what, and that's like a nonstop job, it seems like these days, because they change so fast. So how do you go about finding the niche AI tool that's going to solve your problem for your specific job or industry or whatever? So it's just having an open mindset and mindset, and being a lifelong learner, and just knowing that it's not going to stop anytime soon. You're not going to be able to sit back and kick your feet up with AI, because all this stuff is building blocks. Okay, that's my thing. What do you guys think as far as like just getting back to the central concept as we wrap up? Any other skill sets you guys feel like people should really, really be employing today in order to be a little future proof, if we could?
I got two quick things. Excuse me. Number one, well, I mean, Brian, you covered a bunch of stuff that I would say myself, but I'll double down on the process, understanding your process thing.
Yes.
Because like you said, with the growth of how we go fully multimodal, I want to see someone experiment, right? Let's try and build more things. Let's try and experiment more things, and through that learning process, you'll understand more of the elements that you can integrate into your day-to-day process. But let's go ahead and record ourselves in our processes. Let's just to show how we do things, and then feed that into Gemini or whoever, who's really good with video multimodal, and have it spit out what it saw as our process. Throw that into Operator and see what you get out. Because I think that's an easy win, or an easy way to explore the particular tools and find out where there are gaps. What can you not explain about your whole process? And then the second thing is, thank you everybody in chat for welcoming me back. I'm glad to be back. It's always great to see everybody. So I'm super excited. All right. What's everybody else got?
So I have two sides of the thing. One, learn to code. You don't have to become an amazing coder, but it is helpful to understand what the patterns are. There's so much information, free ways to learn Python right now. And like you can check, right? Like you have your AI to say, oh no, you got that wrong. This is the way that you should do that. Because that's the most probable answer. Second is learn to tell stories about hard concepts. I think that's like going to be really, really key. And one of the hard concepts that you're likely to tell your story about is some research that you did, your own experience. Karl is telling a story for us about what he's done. That is going to be so much more key. Karl's telling it to an audience that really wants to hear it. You need to be able to also hook an audience that is annoyed, does not want to be in this meeting, does not want to hear what AI can do, because AI is gross. Why is everybody all about this? Right. So storytelling, I think, is the other key for me.
I'll say that most business processes do not require an advanced reasoning model and agents. They're the 80% of the solution that will get you the gains in productivity that you're looking for are going to be automations that use LLMs, as part of the process. LLMs will generate things in the course of a sequence that's automated using Make or some other system. And I would focus first on that. Yes, we're being introduced to agents, but it's a ways off before agents can do business process management.
Any thoughts, Karl?
I think the the only thing that I would say is it's not even an AI skill. It's the one skill that you have to have, and we talked about this, is the ability to I don't know what you call it. Some people call it discernment, some call it critical thinking, but you also connected to what Beth said, you have to actually an old manager told me this, you got to paint the picture for people where how do you show them where it's going, essentially what you want to do with AI in where they are and how they think and how they view the world. So it's going to be different for every people, and that's one of the things that we find too, is like working with non-tech traditional companies. It's so different than how people on X, on and any of our communities actually think and see the world, and that's the difference, and that's where you have to make that discernment on how to show and the benefits versus telling some, like, just talking between us, between everyone here who is deep into AI versus somebody who barely focuses on it and just hears bits and pieces of it. There's two different things. Who's more focused on, making payroll, doing whatever else that isn't involving AI.
Yeah. And I think Garrett said, how do you convert a non-AI person to an AI person? I mean, number one, send them to the show, obviously, and have them listen to the show. We'll convert them. But no, I think the real answer is what you just said, Karl, which is solve that person's pain points. Solve their problems, make it value-based selling, that's what people should be doing anyway, is not talking about me sitting in a room with somebody and telling them all the things I've done that are wonderful for me with AI is not going to convert them to AI. But if I think of it as a sales process and I think about value-based selling and I think, well, but what are their pain points that I can solve with my value props? Well, okay, now I'm going to make it relatable to them. So I would say that for anybody, if like some people are just like a stick in the mud and they don't want to see it, figure out what their pain points are and then show them how AI can assist them, not replace them, but assist them with their expertise. And I'll tell you, just in all my years of teaching, I had more experience teaching than I do anything else in my life. Thousands upon hours about either standing in front of classrooms or whatever. And I will tell you that a compliment goes a long way. I don't care what you're doing, but if you want to get somebody's attention and you want to start it, a simple compliment of, well, hey, listen, I couldn't do what you're doing. Like I could see that it's really complex and like blah, 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 right? Going in that process goes a long way. Whether you agree with that or not, I'll just tell you that that has always worked. A simple compliment will hook somebody, then solve their pain points. And I think you'll get them to come around as somebody who at least sees the value in AI and, see where it goes from there. But mostly just send them to this show. All right. So we're going to wrap it up for today. Don't forget, you can go over to the dailyaishow.com and sign up for our newsletter there. Last episode just went out yesterday. Yeah, yesterday is Sunday. It was a crazy weekend for me. And so you can sign up for all the episodes there. You can see everything we got going on. Like and subscribe if you like what we're doing. We're growing on all the platforms. Just had somebody tell me they were listening to us yesterday on a platform that I didn't even realize that we were on. And I would repeat it, but I'll get the name wrong. So that was really cool. They're like, I'm listening to you on da 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 da. I was like, great. And they're like, I love your show. Fantastic. So don't forget to come back the rest of the week. We're working on all the different show topics, but we do want to talk about things called like shadow AI. Obviously, we're going to have the news on Wednesday, and we're going to have a whole lot of other topics the rest of the week. So don't forget to come back. Thanks for everybody to hanging out in the comments. Sorry, I got it derailed with football there for a second, but you guys are back on track. So I hope this is helpful, and we will see you again tomorrow. Until then, thanks everybody. Bye.
Aloha.